this one.
You're recording.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, like, you're not.
Well, I can put this at the end. I can do
Hold on a
it.
second.
No, no, no.
Excuse me.
This is just some of the fun stuff to put on at the very end of the tape. That's miscellaneous. If you want. Well, obviously, put this stuff at the end. We'll make the master tapes. Annie Garrick's picture of that scene.
Where are you going?
Yeah, 37 years. Oh, yes. This must be so sad.
About Cole being here. She looks like Krista a little bit. Huh? Oh no, she's really quite striking. Hi, Summer.
Is that all for you?
Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
Sorry for that. For your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
And Lane, I see that from your book, that on Thursday night, when Lord Shorman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why, is it at a bachelor's establishment the servants invariably drink the wine? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often found that in married households the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens. Is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it to be a very unpleasant state, sir. I've had very little experience of it myself up to the present. I've only been married once, and that was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't think that I'm quite interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir, it is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do, Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really. If the lower orders don't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Earnest Worthing.
How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algy.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are these people you amuse?
Oh, neighbors, neighbors.
You've got nice neighbours in your pot of Shropshire.
Perfectly horrid, never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Shropshire? Yes, of course. Hello? Where are these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why is it requisite extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all well, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolen is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolen flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolen. I have come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you said you'd come for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted. One usually is, I believe, and then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I'll certainly try and forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, dear Algy. The divorce court was specially invented for those whose memories are so curiously concentrated.
Oh, there is no use speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Please don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They are ordered especially for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you eat them all the time.
It is quite a different matter. She is my aunt. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolen. Gwendolen is devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter it is too.
Well, my dear fellow, you need not eat as if you are going to eat at all. You act as if you are married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why not you say that?
My dear fellow, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
That is nonsense.
It isn't. It is the great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors that one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolen is my first cousin. And before I allow you to marry her, you'll have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What do you mean? What do you mean, Algy, by Cecily? I don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room the last time he dined here.
Yes, sir. Do you mean to say you had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you had let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
There is no good offering a large reward now the thing is found.
It's rather mean of you, I must say, Ernest. However, it makes no matter. For now that I look at the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine! You said it with me 100 times. I don't know right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private case.
Oh, it is absurd to have a hard and fast rule of what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I am quite aware of the fact, and I don't propose to discuss modern culture. It isn't the sort of thing one should talk of in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone of the name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Lives at Dunbar 12. Just put back to the Algy.
Yes, but why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt who lives in Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some ants are tall, some ants are not tall. Surely that is a matter that an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be exactly like your aunt. That is absurd. For heaven's sake, just give it back to me, Algy!
Yes, but why does she call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt. But why not, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her uncle? I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all, it is Ernest.
It isn't Earnest. It's Jack.
You always told me it was Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You're the most earnest-looking person I've ever saw in my life. It's perfectly absurd just saying your name isn't Ernest. It is on your cards. Here is one. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4 the Albany. I will keep this as proof if ever you attempt to deny that your name is Ernest to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
My name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country. And the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her uncle. Come on, little boy. You might as well have the thing out at once.
My dear Alfie, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It is a very vulgar thing to talk like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
That is exactly what dentists always do. Now go on. Tell me the whole thing. And might I add, I have always suspected you of being a secret and confirmed bun-breast. And I am quite sure of it now.
Bun-breast? What on earth do you mean by a bun-breast?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to tell me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
It is. Now, produce your explanation and pray make it improbable.
There is nothing probable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as uncle, from motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country, under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where is this place in the country, by the way?
Nothing to you, dear boy. You're not going to be invited. And quite frankly, the place is not in Shropshire.
I suspected that. I've bun-bred all over Shropshire on 2 different occasions. Now go on.
When one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone in all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And as a very high moral tone can hardly be said to produce very much either to one's health or one's happiness, in order to get to town, I've always pretended to have a younger brother by the name of Earnest, who lives in the Albany and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algie, is the whole truth.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. What you really are is a bun-breast. I was quite right in saying you're a bun-breast. You're one of the most advanced bun-breasts I know.
What on earth you mean?
You have invented a very useful brother called Earnest, in order that you may be able to come up to town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may be able to go down into the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's, for I've been really engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know. You're absurdly careless about sending out invitations. So foolish of you. Nothing annoys one more than not receiving his invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I have no intention of doing anything of the sort. In the first place, I know exactly whom she will place me next to.
Oh?
She will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. It is not decent. No, indeed, it's not even pleasant. Besides, now that I know you to be a secret and confirmed bun-breast, I naturally want to talk to you about bun-ring. I want to tell you the rules.
I am not a Bunbury's at all. If Gwendolyn accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily is a little too much interested in him. It is rather a bore. So, I'm going to get rid of Ernest. And I strongly advise you to do the same with with your invalid friend who has the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. If ever you get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you would be happy to know, Bunbury. Any man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
That is nonsense. If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolyn, and she is the only girl I ever saw in my life that I would marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to understand that in married life, 3 is company, 2 is none.
That, my dear fellow, is the theory that the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and that the happy English home is proved in half the time.
For heaven's sake, don't try to be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
It isn't easy being anything nowadays. There's such a beastly competition about.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax have arrived.
Thank you, Lane. Now, if I get Aunt Augusta out for 10 minutes, so that you can have the opportunity of proposing to Gwendolen, may I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
Well, I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about their meals. It's so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you're behaving very well.
I am feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, Gwendolen, you are smart.
Oh, I'm always smart. Aren't I, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that, for it would leave no room at all for developments. And I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry I feel a little late, dear Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea. And some of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come and sit here, Gwendolen?
Oh, thanks, Mamma, but I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens, Lane! Where are all the cucumber sandwiches?
There were no cucumbers in the marketplace this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir, not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers. Not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with dear Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I heard her hair is turned quite gold for grief.
It certainly has changed colours, from what cause I, of course, cannot say. Thank you. I've quite a treat for you tonight. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar.
I am afraid, Aunt Augusta, I will have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight.
I hope not. It would put my table completely out.
It is a great bore, but I have received a letter to say that my poor friend Bunbury is ill again. They seem to think I need to be with him.
I would be obliged if you'd ask Mr. Bunbury for me to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on him to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception of the season, and one wants something that would encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season, when everyone has said practically whatever it is they have to say, which in most cases is probably not much.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious. And I think that I can promise you that he'll be all right by Saturday. Of course, the music is a great difficulty, but I'll run over the program I have drawn out if you'll come into the next room with me.
It is very thoughtful of you, Algernon. I'm sure your program will be delightful after a few explications. French songs I cannot possibly allow. People seem to think them improper, and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. But German sounds a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed I believe it is so. Gwendolen, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain they mean something else. And that makes me so nervous.
You do mean something else.
I thought you did. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
Oh, I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I have met you, I have admired you more than any other girl I've ever met. Since I met you.
Yes, I'm quite aware of the fact, and I often wish in public at any rate that you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always held an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. Oh, we live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals, Oh, and my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. Oh, there is something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. From the moment Algernon first mentioned to me he had a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn?
Passionately.
Darling! You don't know how you've made me.
My own Ernest.
But you don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest, do you?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know it is. But supposing it was something else, do you mean to say you couldn't love me then?
Ah, this is clearly a metaphysical speculation. Oh, and like most metaphysical explanations, has very little reference to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Personally, darling, I don't much care for the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It's a divine name. Oh, it has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, Gwendolyn, I must say I think there are lots of other much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack. No, there is very little music in the name of Jack, if any at all. Indeed, I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is the notorious dear Mr. Stephen John. I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely, you know that I love you, and you've led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you are not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity, and to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I'm fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn!
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you've been about it. I think that you have had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one. I have never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. Oh, I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. Oh, what wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They are quite blue. I hope you will always be just like that, especially when other people are present.
Mr. Worthing! Rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what? May I ask?
I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me. You are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come upon a girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be. It is hardly a matter that she can be allowed to arrange for herself. And now I have a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. While I am making these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mamma!
The carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn! The carriage! You may have a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you're not down on my list of eligible young men. However, I am willing to enter your name should your answers prove to be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I am glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. I'm of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I am pleased to hear it. I am against anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or investments?
Investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What between the duties expected from one during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be either profit or pleasure. It gives one position but prevents one from keeping it up. That is all that can be said about land.
I have a country house with some land, of course, attached to it. About 1,500 acres, I believe. But I don't depend on that for my real income. In fact, as far as I can make out, the poachers are the only people who make anything out of it.
You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with simple, unspoiled nature such as Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I own a house in Belgrave Square, but it is let by the Lady Bloxham.
Lady Bloxham? I don't know her.
She's a lady considerably advanced in her years.
Nowadays, that is no guarantee of the respectability of character. What is your politics?
Well, I'm afraid to say I have none. I am a liberal unionist.
Oh, they count the Tories. They dine with us or come in the evening at any rate. Now on to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I've lost both my parents.
Both? That seems like carelessness. Who is your father?
Well, I'm afraid to say I don't actually know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost both my parents, but it would be near the truth to say they seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes, Lady Bracknell. Oh, Mr. Thomas Cardew, an elderly gentleman of a very charitable and kind disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
Where did this charitable young gentleman who had this first-class ticket to the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell. It was in a handbag. A somewhat large, brown leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
What locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew find this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
The Brighton line?
Oh, the line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing. I feel bound to tell you that I am somewhat confused by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred in a handbag, seems to me to display contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life.
May I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say you do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to acquire at any rate at least one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see how I can possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It's in my bedroom at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom. Finalize the parcel? Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning, Lady Bracknell. Algy! I don't think up with that ghastly tune! How idiotic you are!
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say Gwendolyn refused you?
Oh, Gwendolyn is as right as a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we are engaged. Her mother's perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon. I don't actually know what a gorgon is like, but I'm quite sure Lady Bracknell is one. In any case, she is a monster, without being a myth, which is rather unfair. Upon my word, you don't think there's any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years, do you, Magic?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does. That is his.
Is that clever?
It is perfectly phrased, and quite as true as any observation in civilized life should be. By the way, did you tell Gwendolyn the truth of your being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. Besides, before the end of the week, I shall have got rid of him. My poor brother Ernest will be carried off quite suddenly in Paris by a severe chill.
But I thought you said Miss Cardew was a little too interested in your brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a good deal?
Oh, that is all right. Cecily is not a silly, romantic girl, I am pleased to say. She's got a capital appetite, goes for long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
I would rather like to see Cecily.
I will take very good care you never do. She is excessively pretty, and only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn that you have an excessively pretty ward that is just 18?
One doesn't blurt these things out to people. Gwendolyn and Cecily are perfectly said to be extremely great friends. I'll bet you anything you like that half an hour after they've met, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only do that after they've called each other a lot of other things first. Do you know it is nearly 7?
Miss Fairfax.
Algy, kindly turn around. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn, I don't think that I could allow this at all.
Algy!
Oh, Ernest, we may never be married. Oh, from the expression on Mamma's face, I feel that we never shall. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often, oh, there is nothing that she could possibly do that could alter my eternal devotion to you. Oh, your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address is the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Fulton, Hertfordshire.
There is a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something quite desperate.
My own man.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algy, you may turn round now.
Thanks, I've turned round already.
You may also ring the bell.
You will be seeing to the carriage, my own darling.
Of course.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
I should probably not be back till Monday. You put up all my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you're a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
Oh, there's a sensible, intellectual girl. The only girl I ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm just a little anxious about my poor friend Bunbury, that's all.
If you don't take care of your friend Bunbury, you'll get into a serious scrape someday.
I love scrapes. They are the only things that are never serious.
That is nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.